This is Tim Bryce with my column titled, Taking a Newspaper to Task. It's no secret the mainstream media has turned to the left and actively supports liberal causes. As such, trying to get a conservative comment printed is next to impossible. This was one of the key reasons why I canceled my subscription to the Tampa Bay Times a couple years ago and started the Tampa Bay Conservatives website. Enough is enough. I'm obviously not alone in this regard, as I know many conservatives angered by the press. To illustrate of the people in our Tampa Bay Trump Club, I have yet to meet anyone who subscribes to the Tampa Bay Times. It is simply loathed by conservatives and labeled fake news. I also see this in other newspapers in Democrat-controlled urban strongholds where they pander to the left, such as Portland, Seattle, Chicago, New York, and so on. I have offered suggestions for confronting the news media, including picketing and boycotting, but one of the most effective means to protest the media is simply the printed word, which, unfortunately, few people use to express their displeasure. Enter Larry Marlin, an old friend and conservative from Bryan, Texas, near College Station and Texas A&M University. For quite some time, Larry subscribed to the local newspaper, the Bryan College Station Eagle. However, he began to notice a shift in the editorial slant of the paper and brought it to the attention of the editor there. Unfortunately, the liberal slant went from bad to worse. Finally, he could stand it no more and wrote the following letter recently to the newspaper, which I found particularly interesting. Dear Editorial Board, since August 10th, I have kept copies of your newspaper and reviewed them for bias. As you may recall, you printed a letter I wrote saying most of the Eagle bias comes from your Associated Press articles. I later wrote a letter saying I had been mistaken and your paper was rife with bias. The second letter was based on material you printed after being woke by Black Lives Matter and the rest of the protesters. You did not print that letter. I did say I was not a member of the cancel culture, and rather than cancel my subscription, I would see if your paper made any effort to reduce bias. I have reviewed each issue since August 10th. You have not improved. If anything, you've gotten worse. During the period August 10th through September 4th, you have printed 28 left-wing editorials and 9 right-wing ones. In editorial cartoons, you did better with 5 right-wing and 3 left-wing. Concerning the cartoons, it's interesting that several days after Speaker Nancy Pelosi's hypocritical visit to get her hair washed, you finally printed something about it in a cartoon relegated to the bottom of the editorial page. Other than that, as near as I can tell, you completely ignored the story. Of course, your AP articles continue to be overwhelmingly left-wing. I have not seen any indication of an attempt on your part to reduce this left-wing bias. I doubt you have contacted AP concerning your outrageously dishonest presentations of the news. I don't have time to list all the left bias articles by AP. I would mention Steve Peoples' articles about the Democrat convention compared to his articles about the Republican convention, day and night. Anyway, I will be canceling my subscription. I just can't imagine how you will ever change. Should you surprise me and decide to make needed changes such as blasting the Associated Press, hiring a few conservatives, balancing your editorials, writing more unifying local editorials, or anything else, please let me know. I might resubscribe. Signed sincerely, Lawrence P. Marlin, September 4th, 2020. What I liked about this letter is that it wasn't ranting and raving, but rather a matter-of-fact dissertation as to why someone was unsubscribing. If I was the editor, I would consider it carefully and not dismiss it out of hand, as it represents a legitimate concern of a reader. If Larry's data is correct, the editor should now realize his slip is showing and should take steps to correct it before all of his conservative readers abandon him. The reality, though, is, as a supporter of the far left, the editor couldn't care less and is willing to sacrifice readership to preserve the left's dogma. This is essentially no different than the attitude of the mayors of Democrat-controlled cities where their citizens' lives and businesses are threatened. This, of course, is reckless behavior and speaks volumes of their priorities of choosing Democrat policies over the safety and well-being of their citizens. Larry's letter also happens to make a handy template for writing your own letter to other newspapers. For those of you who have difficulty penning a letter to the editor, simply copy Larry's letter, update it with data specific to your area, and send it in, preferably by email. If enough people complain of the unfair tactics of the press, the better the chances of getting some honest news reporting. To do nothing is to surrender to the press. I'll leave it with you. Friends, keep the faith. This is Tim Bryce in Palm Harbor, Florida. Follow me on the internet at timbryce.com.